Hey, everybody, welcome into Talking Tactics with Coach Gough, the uncut, unedited version of the show that apparently is going to be permanent because nobody has volunteered to come on, and it wouldn't even be volunteer, it's a paid position, but nobody wants to help me out with a little audio editing, but that's okay. I think this is working out pretty well. If you have thoughts otherwise, or if you just think it's great and want to encourage us, feel free to get in touch. But until that, you're going to get Justin Hoyte and I uncut and with very, very minimal editing. FC Cincinnati headed to the Music City this past Saturday, looking to make it 2 wins in a row for the first time since the beginning of July. However, it was Nashville that opened the scoring in just the 4th minute when a Yamil Assad turnover led to a run out that ended with Sam Surridge scoring from close range. FCC looked to have reset the match when Lucho Acosta leveled the score just 5 minutes later, but then they capitulated to give up the lead when they conceded yet another set-piece goal off a corner kick. In the second half, Luca Orishano scored a banger free kick to once again level the score, but the Orange and Blue simply couldn't find another breakthrough and settled for a 2-2 draw on the night. What did Nashville do that allowed them to score twice early in the match? Was FCC better in the second half, or did Nashville just slow down? We'll ask these questions and more, and we'll do it all with the one and only Justin Hoyte. Justin, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, Coach. I'm feeling good. I'm great. Good weekend. Cincinnati didn't get the victory, but we'll take a point away from home. Other than that, I'm feeling good. How are you, Coach? How's things?
It's raining here in Cincinnati, which is lovely because it feels like fall finally, soccer weather finally. So I am loving
Feels
that.
like the UK then.
Yeah, as you know, my Tottenham Hotspur got back into winning ways, so I'm happy with that. And you know what, Justin? 4 points from 2 road matches. When you look at that as a whole, you got to be pretty happy, right? Away to Minnesota, away to Nashville, even though neither team is at the top of the table, both difficult matches, to come out of there with 4 points is good. Here's my question to you, though. You'd say 2 away matches, 4 points. I'm assuming you're happy with that. But after you get that first win in Minnesota, does that draw in Nashville just stick under your ribs a little bit? Like, man, could have come away with 6 points? Because Nashville really has been struggling this season.
I feel Nashville has been struggling. You would come away and say after a win in Minnesota, you'd be like, oh, yeah, we could have, got one over Nashville. But on a whole, with the travel and the short space of time, I would definitely take that result. You didn't lose. That's what you got to come away with. It wasn't a loss. It was a point gained. Sometimes you can see it as 2 points lost, but I would say it's a point gained. And at the end of the day, Coach was still in a good position to get home playoff games. So I think at the minute that's the key. And we just have to keep going. And the team, was fighting to the end. Nashville was a tough side. They've not been playing well. But credit to Cincinnati, you saw Nashville change their formation to combat Cincinnati. So I felt that's credit to what the team have done. And I felt Nashville really turned it on against Cincinnati just to make sure that Cincinnati wasn't going to roll them over again.
Yeah, and they have been finding their form. So, we should get right into the match and talk about it. So let's hit the film room. But first, I want to remind the listeners that we are brought to you by Apollo Home. Give them a call if you have any HVAC, plumbing, or electrical needs. And before you do that, and while you have your phone out, please head on over to the socials and give us a follow. I am at FC Cincy Tac Talk. He is at Justin Hoyte 32. And as always, you can drop us a note at Cincy Soccer Talk or in the electronics mail slots, feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. All right, Justin, let's get right to it. Alex Mendez got in touch and says, hey, Coach, can you talk about why you think Noonan went with Santos over Kelsey in a game against Nashville? I don't understand it. So, Justin, I want to use this question as an excuse to talk about the overall lineup and how it potentially, for me, caused the team to feel a bit disconnected. So Noonan was forced into one change. That was Pavel Buka being out due to what they're calling a family issue. So his solution, instead of changing that one player, was to drop Kubo out of the forward position into the midfield. So that's one change. He had to bring on a forward to replace Kubo in the front line. So that's a second change. He rotated Big Kev out of the lineup. That's a third change. He rotated Assad in at left wing back, which is a fourth change, which pushed Orishano over to the right wing back and rotated Yedlin out, which is a fifth change. Now, Justin, I can make arguments for all of these changes. Kubo is maybe the third best midfielder on the team in that number
Yeah.
8, number 6 position.
Mhm.
We need Assad to get minutes coming back from injury. Orishano maybe is more
100%.
dangerous on the right. Santos has been
Mhm.
playing really well off the bench. But Justin,
Off the
even though
bench.
I don't have a problem with this, with any one change, just the number of them all at once. What did you make of the lineup rotation?
I would see it as the amount of games they've had with the travel. Playing Minnesota midweek. I would say it's to give some players games, fresh legs, freshen it up a little bit. But yeah, uh, I feel like because of the amount of games they've had in a short space of time, there's definitely going to be a few changes to freshen it up, give players minutes, which is what is needed coming towards the end of the season and going into looking into the playoffs. We need players to be up to speed, and I feel that's what Noonan's kind of doing. As you see Assad come in, he needs minutes. He's not played for a little while. He needs minutes. Santos, like you say, has been doing really, really well off the bench. I felt he done a fairly good job in this game. So yeah, Kubo is Kubo. He slots in everywhere. Orishano can play left or right. But now looking at it, coach, I think we've got to look at something else. If everyone is healthy now, who gets the starting position? Assad has been playing really well when he comes in and plays. Is he going to start? Is Orishano going to start over Yedelin? So I think there are the dynamics we have to start looking at because I feel like Assad done really well in this game, very attack-minded player. So yes, there are rotations, but now some of the players are actually giving Noonan a headache because they're performing well when they're playing. That's a great sign for the team, but now it's giving Noonan a headache. Decisions and tough decisions is going to have to be made.
Well, it seems to me like his solution to that headache is to just roll out different players every match. We talked about that stat that they have not
Which has
repeated the
happened,
same
yeah.
lineup a single time this year. And I think that, we talked about how hard it is to gel at times and with how much turnover there was in this team from the beginning. I understand some rotation, but I think 5 changes in the starting 11 is just overdoing it. I think in a match where you're already having to rotate Buka out, maybe you don't give
Mm-hmm.
Assad the start then, and maybe you roll with a Yedlin and Orishano, or maybe you
Mm-hmm.
don't rotate Big Kev out of the match. Sure, he played at midweek, but he didn't play 90 minutes, and he's 19 years old. Dude can probably handle playing 2 games in a week. You've played in the championship.
Yeah.
You know how that is. Like,
Mm.
it is doable, right? And this team
Yeah.
showed some disconnectedness, right? In the second minute, there's a really
Mm-hmm.
lovely ball into Nico Gioacchini checking in that Miles Robinson played, and he plays it first time underneath to Lucho, and Lucho immediately tries to play Santos up the seam, but Santos just wasn't making the run. He had stopped, not realizing what was happening. And certainly that was very early in the game, and we can say, maybe he just wasn't into it yet. But it's that kind of thing that it's like, man, if those 3 players have been playing together game in and game out, that might have been a goal right off the bat. Instead, you have the 4th minute where some disconnection leads to a goal. So let's talk about that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Murphy has the easy possession for FC Cincinnati. He basically just shifts the ball to the left sideline to Assad, and Assad tries to play it first time into the midfield for Lucho Acosta, but Lucho wasn't checking into that space.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a pattern we see all the time, where that wing back plays first time to the middle to like an Obi or a Buka or a Lucho and then makes the run. It seemed to me like Assad read that situation, like that pass was on. Lucho didn't, but it's a turnover. He passed it right to a Nashville defender, which means they were running at us. Assad was 15 yards behind the play before he could even, take a step to get back into it. And then FCC transition defense just looked terrible, I guess, because it was so early in the match. There were plenty of people back to defend, but nobody really does so. You have Perez, who has the ball on the right, floats the ball to the back post to a wide open Taylor Washington. And Taylor Washington kind of makes a mess of it. He tries to volley it back into the middle, but he doesn't get it right. But because the back line had dropped basically into Roman Celentano's lap, Sam Surridge is there facing away from goal, but he can pivot and sweep it home. Justin, it was such a simple goal so early. What did you see other than the turnover? Because, turnovers happen, that could have helped prevent this goal.
I would say the only thing you can and you would say is yes, the position of the players is right. I would say is the recovery run of Orishano. As soon as we say burst, like to say burst the gut a lot in on this podcast, on this show. Why I say that is because as soon as you see that ball turned over as a defender and as a wing back, yes, he's not natural defender. You have to burst the gut. You see how Washington puts on the skates to get to where he needs to get to in the box, and a lucky volley or whatever you call it in to make an assist on the goal. If Orishano gets back there, matches him speed for speed, I think he's faster than him. I think he'll get there to be able to stop that cutback. And then in the end, I think the players have just tried to react off that Washington touch. I would say a missed touch. No one can get to the ball in time, and the ball goes in the back of the net. On a positive note, Coach, what I would like to say is the recovery run of Santos. Now, when I say burst the gut to get in there, you see how far he run. Like, we'll talk about the goal, but I would say let's finish this goal on a positive note. And when we say burst the gut, or get back into place really quickly, the run of Santos to try and get back into position to help the defense. This is what we're talking about, and that is a prime example of, you have to say hats off to him. I'd applaud him for that. Yes, they scored, but the recovery run he's tried to make to get back there, Coach, is unbelievable, and that's what we like to see. We don't like to see a goal, but to make it a positive, look at his run to get back in there and try and stop that.
Yeah, and I hope that Noonan and the coaching staff is sitting in film room and talking to Luca Orishano and being like, if you worked that hard, that goal might have been prevented. Because you're right, like Santos got on his bike, he was gone. He didn't do anything when he got back there. He just kind of ran into the back of the net. But he did great effort. Let me ask you about
he tried to get there. He tried to get it.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Yuya Kubo. Because I think that's another option. When there's a turnover like that, oftentimes, because the wingbacks are pushed forward, it is the job of a holding midfielder. And we've seen Buka do it pretty effectively. It is the job of a holding midfielder to drop into that wingback position. Yuya, on the other hand, recovered to the middle of the field. And so I don't fault Yuya for that. It wasn't like, terrible play. He, he was ignorant, nothing like that. But I just wonder, do you think that he made the right play in recovering to the middle? And to ask it another way, if FCC had Pavel Buka, their normal number 8 playing out there, do you think he drops into that wider position and helps defend that cross?
I think it's tough to say. I think maybe Buka might have seen that. I feel if you look at Yuku's body position and his head as he's running back there, he doesn't actually check his shoulder to see if Orishano's back. If he takes a quick glance over his shoulder, he can see that someone's on the back post if it's going to go there, and maybe make that run to cover that space. But all in all, Coach, I actually think he's got a man up there he's trying to get back to for the cutback. So I feel like he's made the correct run, because there is actually Honey Mukhtar on where Kubo is. So I feel like he's in the right position. If he was to track to the back post, yes, there is enough defenders there. I still feel that the defender's natural position is to defend the 6-yard box. Now, Mukhtar is in a prime position to be able to cut the ball back to get the ball to score. So I feel Kubo is in a good position. But yeah, I feel like we're nitpicking at Kubo a little bit, but I feel like he's made a good decision knowing who Honey Mukhtar is in them sort of situations.
Fair enough. Last question, just because we'll talk more about Cheeto generally later, but just on this play, he's been getting a lot of criticism of late, saying he's not quite fitting into the back line. People, I think, pointing some of the defensive deficiencies at Awazium. On this play in particular, he does lose Surge. He's marking Surge. He turns to see the ball, tries to watch the flight of the ball as it goes over his head, and just completely loses Surge. Do you fault him for that, or do you think there's so much chaos in the box and really transition defending? If Washington volleys that on goal, he is there kind of in the net to block that far post. Do you think he chose maybe one of the right options and it just happens that Washington laid it across instead of going for goal? Or do you think, no, he should have stayed with his man Surge and not ball watched a bit?
No, I don't feel he's done the wrong thing. I just feel like as a defender, you just defend your position. As a striker, you're like, right, this ball could be cut back to me. I don't feel that a defender in that position there would run and man mark the player. I wouldn't have man marked him. I would have stayed in my position. The ball's gone over my head. Now I need to turn to face to see where the ball's going. If Washington decides to take a touch there, which he tried to, which was a terrible touch, but he touched it. If he was able to then shoot, we've got pressure on the ball. Now, if he takes a bad touch and it's gone to the striker's natural position is like, oh, this is coming to me. I feel he's done the right thing. I would have probably done exactly the same thing as Wojciech there, but it was just, a bad touch. I'm sure Washington didn't mean that for sure. But I feel like he's done the right thing in that position.
Yeah, and I think ultimately when you look at the little things, I think that Murphy probably when he closes on Hani in the build-up to that play could have cut the angle off, so Hani couldn't have played it out to the right a little bit better. I think that Assad could have recovered a little bit more quickly, bursting and gut, as you say, and maybe prevented that cross. But again, the turnover is the problem here. And maybe the fact that right when that ball was turned over, I needed, for me as a coach, I'm saying, guys, turnovers are going to happen. What you need to do is you need to cut that player down, take the tactical foul at midfield right when that turnover happens, and hope that since you're in the first 4 minutes of the game, you don't get a yellow. But if you do, you do. There were other moments of sloppy play to highlight, Justin. We could talk about a ton, just a few. In the 43rd minute, Nico Gioacchini checked back to receive the ball and tried to lay it off first time to Santos, but Santos had started to run forward, so it goes straight out of bounds. In the 45th minute, there's a ball into Lucho, and he tries to dummy it to let it run through to Nico, but Nico isn't checking, so it just goes straight to a defender. The overall question I have is this, because you talked about, some rotation, the midweek match, but at what point does Pat Noonan need to start putting some consistent lineups out on the field? I mean, how many games do you think it will take to get some consistency before guys look like they know what each other are doing and the plays that each other are going to make?
I feel like now everyone is slowly getting back from injury or back from suspension and back to what we need to be fully fit towards the playoffs for the last run of games. I feel like as the games go on, maybe, Saturday, maybe the week after, if there's not an international break. And then I feel after that, coach, I think slowly we'll start to see game after game, a consistent lineup. As long as there's no injuries or suspension, I feel like next game or even the game after, we'll start seeing a consistent lineup. And we're going to need to see that because, in this game, we saw breakdown, as you said, we're attacking and it's breaking down. In defense, there's a breakdown in communication, and Nashville able to get in a few times, or there was offside, which we're lucky about. But I feel on Saturday we'll get more of an incline of how things are going to look, probably heading towards the end of the season. That's my opinion. That's what I think. I might be wrong. I don't know what you think, coach, but I just feel from Saturday onwards, I feel like we're going to start seeing more of a consistent lineup. I
hope so.
There's certain personnel in certain positions.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 matches left in the season. I think you need to have at least a run of 3 matches where you have a pretty consistent lineup. And like you said, I'm not saying every player needs to be the same. I'm just saying you can't be changing half of your outfield positions game to game. If you say, well, legitimately, I feel like we have Gioacchini, Kubo, Santos, and Big Kev that all can start up top. So what we're going to do is start 2 of them and then rotate one in and then rotate one in, something like that. I get that. Rotating one forward piece, fine. Maybe Assad's not fully fit, so maybe you start him and then give him a game off and then start him. That's one other piece. But changing so many, I think, is just a mistake.
But with that, coach, I have a question. Now we're looking at, okay, we've got a game at the weekend. Who is our best lineup?
Let's talk about that later. There's a question in the mailbag.
That is okay. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. But
we'll
I'm thinking about it now. When I'm looking at it, I was looking at the game and I'm just thinking, well, who is our best lineup? But yeah, we'll get to that later, coach.
Get your roster pulled up for the end of the show. We'll get to that in the mailbag. As for the question, as for Alex's question, Santos playing over Big Kev. We talked about how well Santos has played, and you said it yourself. He was pretty good in this match. He had an impressive 4 shot creating actions, only a 26% possession loss ratio, meaning roughly 1/4 of the times he touched the ball was a possession loss, which sounds high, but for a striker, that's really pretty good. 8 progressive receptions, only 1 missed touch. He also had a few notable moments, like in the first half stoppage time. He made a great little run off the left-hand side of the defense and got deep into what I would call the Man City cutback zone, which is that area on the goal line between kind of the 6-yard box and the 18-yard box where you look for cutbacks. And he cut the ball back to Nico, but Nico didn't get his feet set, so he couldn't prod it home.
I remember that.
We talked about that effort on the opening goal for Nashville. He was good defensively all night. He had 3 tackles as a forward, but also he didn't have a single shot himself. And he was marking Surridge on the corner that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Why do you think Noonan started Santos over Big Kev? Do you think that it was down to the matchup? He saw something in Nashville and thought Santos was better? Or do you think it was just player rotation and giving a guy in Sergio Santos who's played really well with a lot of effort, just giving him a run out as a reward?
I'll say the second one, Coach. I'll definitely say because Santos has been coming off the bench and been doing really well. I feel like Noonan probably thought, well, you deserve a start. It's a midweek game. It's a chance, an opportunity to rest Big Kev for, probably Saturday's game. Santos has been doing really well. And I feel like sometimes as a coach, you have to reward players who are coming off the bench, who have not started many games, to give them a little reward, give them a carrot to be like, look, and to show the rest of the team that, look, if you perform well coming off the bench, you're going to get your chance, you're going to get your opportunity to show what you can do. You deserved it. So I feel that's probably why he's got his chance. As a coach, you know that better than, me. I'm going into that field, but I want to know and learn that, is that your mind frame going into this game? Do you feel like you would have said to him, right, you deserve that spot? Or is it more like, well, I'm going to rest you, Big Kev, let Santos have a game, knowing that, you've got Big Kev for Saturday?
Man, I think
how would you see
exactly
it? How
what
would
you
you
said.
play that, Coach?
I think it's exactly what you said with a twist. You are definitely rewarding Santos. But the other thing you're doing when you just say, you don't say like, oh, I'm rewarding you because you've been working hard.
Yeah, of course.
What you say to him is, you've performed really well. And I think that you give us the best chance to score in this match. And the reason why you say it like that is because you want Big Kev to hear and be like, oh, no, man, I give us the best chance. You want that competition, right? And we saw that when Santos gets pulled in the 67th minute for Big Kev, he's angry. He doesn't, blow up at Noonan, but he's ripping the tape off his wrist. He's unhappy to be coming out of the match. So I think that competition, is really, really good overall. Although I will say, because of the number of changes, I'm not sure I would have done it this match. I've been happy with how Big Kev has been playing. And I would say I don't want to change 5 positions. If I leave Big Kev up there and, bring in maybe Nico for Kubo or something, that's 1 fewer change. That's probably what I would have done as a coach. But, now again, we're like we say, we're picking nits. At Sans Soccer got in touch and wants to talk about that second goal, Justin, because At Sans Soccer says, broken record here, but what is the defensive lapse when defending corners? The word has to be out on FCC that they are vulnerable in that part of the game. So let's talk about that second goal, Justin. In the 25th minute, another goal off a corner. So the issue here structurally is that FCC plays straight up man-to-man, except for they have Yuya Kubo at the near post. Like, I don't know why they zone that one near post position, because he's just in front of the near post, I guess, just in case they try to whip it in low and hard. But what that allows for is that you have Zimmerman and the right back for Nashville, Gaines, make a near post run, and that pulls their defenders with them and leaves a big pocket in the middle of the field. And you have Daniel Lovitz, who stays in the middle and kind of just turns and pins Nico, who's marking him, so he can't come out and win the ball in the middle. And then Surridge knows all he has to do is set Santos up, which he does. He floats to the back post. Right when Santos turns his hips square, he darts in front of him. The ball is played, completely free header. So I guess, Justin, as a coach, I never have my team play straight up man to man. I do a hybrid system. I think it's the best. It doesn't allow you to get picked as easy. It doesn't allow your team to get pulled totally out of position by a simple play. But FCC is married to man, it seems to me. Do you think that is a structural problem? Or do you think, okay, if you're going to play man to man, you're going to play man to man, but then Santos, you have to do a better job of marking Sam Surridge there?
Yeah, if you go man to man, it's basically you against your man, and your man doesn't score at any cost. And if your man scores, then you have to hold your hands up and say, "Look, that's my man. That's my problem." Zonally, it's more like how did the defender get in that zone? Is he in your zone? Is he in someone else's zone? That's kind of where you get the confusion when people score. But when it's man to man, it's literally like, this is your man. I'm against you. If I'm against you, you're not going to score. I'm going to make it so uncomfortable for you to score. If you score, you have to jump maybe 2-3 foot higher than me because I'm going to make it horrible for you, and you're going to have to out jump me to be able to score. But yeah, man to man, it is basically you against the defender.
So quick question, just as a defender, I'm sure you've played in both systems. When I know your preference is to mark the post, we know that. But say you're not allowed to be on the post.
I'm at the post.
Say you're not allowed. Would you rather be in a zone, or would you rather be man to man?
I prefer man to man. Why? It's because it's me against you. That's my preference, because I know I can outsmart my defender that I'm playing against. Zonally, I'm kind of like, I'm not too sure. Like, if the ball goes up, do I jump for it? Does someone else jump for it? Do you know, like, if this person's making a run in this zone, do I then go and challenge him? Does he go and challenge him? What, you get a bit confused. Whereas I think me, as being man to man, I'm like, you know what, this is my man. No one's going to get in between us. I'm going to block you at all costs. If you get a header on it, then I'll make sure it's not going to go in the goal. But if you do score, then it'll be an amazing header. But I really do prefer man to man.
Fair enough. But then why do you think they had Sam Surridge, probably, other than Walker Zimmerman's, Nashville's number one target? Maybe he's number 3. I don't know the other center back from Nashville, Mayer, if he is good in the air. But why do you think they have Santos marking him? You have 3 center backs out there: Miles Robinson, Chidozie Awaziam, and Ian Murphy. You'd think those 3 would mark the 3 biggest aerial threats. Why do you think Santos ended up on Surridge? Do you think, again, that was planned? Or do you think that Roman Celentano should have went out and grabbed his center backs and be like, no, you mark him, you mark him? As a player out there, this is what I don't know. I've never, as not having coached professionally, do coaches set that up? You're going to mark him on corners? Or is it on the players? And did Santos just end up on Surridge for some confluence of events?
No, every team I've been on, every team I've played at, you have set pieces up on the board. If you're man to man, you know who you're going to be matched up against man to man. If you're in a zone, you know certain zones that you're going to be in. On another note, if you're in a zone and there's players that are spare, the spare players are told who to pick up, who to bump, to knock off runs. It'll be probably the main headers of the ball. But most certainly, I'm sure it would have been planned that Santos was to mark him. That would have been the game plan, and I'm sure that would have been the plan.
Seems like a strange choice to me, but it is what it is. Justin, speaking of structural issues and strange choices, I want to talk a little bit about goal kicks, not FCCs, but as weird as it sounds to say, defending goal kicks. Because it seemed to me like Nashville, like every goal kick that Willis took ended in a Nashville chance. They have a pretty good target up there in Sam Surridge, and Willis was picking him out, but some of their best opportunities came from goal kicks. That second goal, the corner, started from a goal kick. It's just a goal kick from Willis towards Surridge. Cheeto actually wins the first ball, but it goes straight up in the air. Obi gets the second header and nods it forward. The defender heads it straight back toward Obi. Surridge nudges him from behind and he goes down. And then just like that, Nashville's off and running. The ball goes to Perez out wide. Assad is just chilling on the weak side as a wing back on the goal kick. So Perez is wide open. Murphy has to shuffle over and just block his shot out for a corner. And that's where the corner kick goes to a goal. In the 34th minute, Perez gets a free header that he can't put on frame that starts with a goal kick from Willis towards Surridge. Surridge backs into Cheeto and falls over. The ball goes over both of them to Washington, who's just streaking up the left touchline. And the problem seems to be that the center back is going to lose the battle with a good, strong center forward sometimes. Cheeto's going to fall or Cheeto's going to head the ball straight up in the air.
Mhm.
And I want to know, what are the players around him supposed to be doing? When you talk about that Perez header that I just talked about, Washington takes off down the sideline, assuming that Surridge is going to win that ball and flick it on. But you see
Mhm.
Orshano watching who's going to win this ball. And then Washington just runs past by him. On the far side, you see Assad just watching as Perez is starting to move forward, thinking if this ball goes through, I want to be on the back stick. Obi is in the middle of the field, not marking anybody. As a coach, I taught my players on goal kicks. What you want to do is you want to mark someone, right? Or when you want to get goal side of them, goal side and your side, right?
Mhm.
And you want to be kind of in the zonal area where the ball is going to land. And you can tell that based on how the opponent's
Mhm.
going to fall set up. So Obi should have been over in that area for
Yeah, of
me.
course.
Assad, there's no
Mhm.
way that Assad should not be goal side of Perez. There's no way.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
even if
Mhm.
FCC wins the ball, Assad has plenty of time on the weak side to release up the field. So
Yeah.
my question is, I saw at least 3 really good opportunities that Nashville had, and they didn't have many, that came straight from goal kicks. What is going on there structurally? What in teams that you've been part of, does a coach say anything about when the opponent is taking a goal kick? Or is it just like players should know better than to just be chilling and watching to see what's going to happen while the ball goes over the defense and then all of a sudden Nashville's running down our throat?
I mean, players should know better. You know, you've been in many situations and goal kicks. You know, you must be goal side. But I feel what happens is sometimes you switch off in them moments and you're like, right, the ball's gone up in the air. You know where the ball's going to go, but you're gambling to think, right, our defender's going to win this. So naturally, when the ball's heading there, you do naturally switch off. Where when you're forward thinking, like Nashville were, they're already in advance to be like, right, he's going to win this. Let me start making my way forward. Whereas I feel like Assad or maybe Orishano or maybe Obi are kind of thinking like, okay, we're not sure what's going to happen here. And they, I would say, go into a little trance, lose a little bit of concentration, thinking the ball's going to be won by Cincinnati, and then it doesn't. And you just kind of switch. I call it switching off for a brief moment of time, which does happen a lot on goal kicks, unfortunately.
Yeah. I wonder if that's a little Matt Miazga hangover because he won so many of those aerial duels. I wonder if like
Yeah,
they're
you
just
get
used
used to
to.
that.
Yeah. So let's talk about Cheeto just a little bit more because Joe Braun wants to know if Cheeto has kind of proven that he has to be in the center of the back three. The announcers during the game were making it seem
Yeah, I
like, oh,
heard
because
about
he's
that.
on a yellow, they put him in the middle to protect him. He started at right center
Yeah,
back
I
with
heard that.
Miles Robinson back and playing in the center. Do you see anything in his play that indicates that he is better off as that central defender rather than on the right?
The only way I see why he plays on the right is because of his passing ability, his ball distribution, and I feel like he can advance the ball a bit more on the right hand side. He can get a little bit higher up. He's better on the ball higher up than he is centrally. I feel he can affect the play more on the right hand side. Centrally, he has to be a bit more, I'll say, conservative. But which side do I think he plays better? I would say probably central. Why I feel centrally is because I feel Miles Robinson is much more comfortable playing on the right hand side.
Yeah.
But I think I would prefer Iwobi on. I think I prefer him on Iwobi on the right hand side.
Well, it's good. You need to think about that because we're going to have a question about the lineup later. Remember,
Yeah.
what's interesting is this might have a little bit to do with game states, but Nashville had 2 shots, both on target, both goals in the first half. In the second half, they only had 1 shot, and it was off a free kick from 24
Mhm.
yards out, and it wasn't on target. So they had virtually no XG. I don't know if, we talked about those long balls, and I don't know if FCC kind of figured out that long ball situation. I don't know if it's because Cheeto and Miles switched, but I think you're exactly right that Cheeto is better on the right with his passing. But The other thing is I think Miles is a better 1v1 defender. And that also makes him better on
Yeah,
the right, because you have your wing backs bombing
on the right.
forward.
Yeah.
Those outside center backs, Murphy
hmm
and Robinson, need to be good in 1v1. So it's interesting that
100%.
both the skills make Robinson and Cheeto probably better suited to be on the outside. What will be interesting to know is this team doesn't have a natural center back without Miazga. So I think that they need to go with whichever one of those guys is better at organizing people, which I would guess is Miles Robinson because of the familiarity with teammates and stuff. But I think above all, again, the switching back and forth is probably not doing anyone any favors. Justin, you have played all along the back line. Am I making too much of that switch to be playing right center back and then flipping to play center while the other guys plays right? Is that a big mental switch, or is it just kind of like defending from a little bit of a different position, and guys should be able to do both?
Yeah, I think it's defending from a different position, different way, different style. I feel centrally for me was a lot easier than on the right or the left, just because you can control everything. You can control people to the right of you, to the left of you, to the people in front of you, and you're kind of there as the sweeper to sweep everything up. So I felt like the centrally for me was easier, but I preferred to be on the right hand side because it was easier to pick out passes, to play forward, and I was okay on the ball. So I felt like playing on the right hand side, I was used more. Centrally, I feel like I just played right left easily, and not playing penetrating passes. So I would say, yeah, definitely. If you're looking at the team, you would say you do need a natural lead. Essentially, yes, you haven't got Matt Miazga, but Robinson can be that person. Is he that
Right.
person for the team? We don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a tough decision, coach. And the chopping and changing. I feel like Noonan's not sure which way to play either one of them. I don't think he's sure
Bingo.
if to play Miles Robinson on the right or if to play him centrally. I feel Murphy, to put him on the left, that's his strength.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Noonan knows which way to play either one of them. So I feel that's why he changed it also at halftime to see what it would look like with Miles on the right hand side, just to
That's
see
the
what it
thing.
was going to look like.
That's the thing, Justin. How are we supposed to know who's better where when Pat Noonan
We don't
clearly
know.
doesn't know
We
yet
don't.
who's better
He's
where?
not sure himself. Yeah, I think
Exactly.
we can help him.
Justin, I want to talk about the FCC offense. But first, I want to let the
Yeah.
listeners know that we are sponsored once again by Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a local physical therapy and fitness company that helps people stay active and injury free. They help some of our local MLS, MLS Next, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. And I do hope you all get in touch with Beyond Exercise if you have a need. If you have a need to get in touch with us, you can do that on the socials at FC Cincy Tac Talk and at Justin Hoyte 32. If you have a question or comment, you can get at us there or send us a note to feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. So, Justin, I want to talk about how FCC's offense chose to approach the game. But first, I think we have to talk about the Nashville defense and how they set up, just to kind of set up the opposition. They sat in a mid block. And what I thought was really interesting is they really sat back on the midfielders and just said, hey, center backs, you can have the ball. And they kind of forced FCC's center backs to try to beat them. Anytime a midfielder received the ball in space, they just dropped off like crazy, like keep the ball in front. Don't let penetration in behind. You saw FCC really struggling to get those passes in behind that back line, which meant there was really very little for chance for FCC to get in behind that line unless a center back could play a long ball over the top. And it turns out that the center backs for FC Cincinnati were the top 3 players in progressive passes. Murphy had 14, Miles had 12, Cheeto had 11. And Lucho Acosta almost always leads that category for FCC when he plays.
Yeah.
Occasionally you'll have Buka or Kubo when he plays in the midfield be up there, but Lucho always leads that category. But this was stark. All 3 center backs as the top 3. Justin, as a center back, what is the difficulty in playing in a team that's not going to come and challenge you, and so that you can find those passing lanes, that's going to kind of sit back and be like, hey, try to beat us over the top, try to beat us through the middle. We'll let you have the ball.
just picking the right passes, making the right decisions on the ball. And it's difficult because, you're on the ball more than you want to, I would say more than you want to be, because you want to give it to more forward players. You want to give it to the midfield to make progressive passes. You want to give it to players like Lucho or Rashano, um, Kubo, Santos. You want to give the ball to them kind of players. But in this game, when a team's just sat back, it's literally like you've got the ball coach, and you're just seeing, they was wearing black jerseys. You're just seeing black jerseys in front of you. Yes, you are seeing your own teammates, but you're like, okay, now they're waiting for me to make that pass. Do I make it, or do I now make a simple pass? And it's kind of like you second guessing yourself. Whereas I feel like if a team's pressing you, it's easy because your mind's already made up. You're already like, right, he's going to press me. I can play it around the corner. Right, he's pressing me. I can make a quick decision. I feel like as a defender, when you've got, especially in the back three, when you've got so much time on the ball, I feel like you don't know what to do with it, because sometimes you'd be like, right, can I try and play that pass through to Acosta? But I'm not sure, because it might be if they break and intercept it, they're going to be through on goal. So I feel when you have that time on the ball, more time than you should have, I feel it's hard. It's a tough decision to make on where to play the ball. I'll be honest. I prefer people to press me because I could.
Totally. What we ended up seeing then is what I talked about a couple weeks ago, where what I called pinch and stretch, which is just a lot of that action where one runner checks into the ball and then other runners check into that space in behind him. And we'd see FCC keep the ball, pass it around the edges, and look for that moment to break lines. Sometimes that was a forward checking in. You had Nico Gioacchini playing really deep a lot of times. Even Santos checked pretty deep often. A lot of times it was even to Assad, who would check to the middle from the left, and then Lucho or sometimes even Nico or Santos would run off him. And that's how FCC transitioned from the middle to the attacking third. And I thought it was pretty effective, other than they didn't get any transition opportunities. It was literally like building up slowly, working their way up the field, because they could have that pass into Nico or Santos checking, but they could almost, or I don't want to say almost never, but it was more of a rare situation where they could get somebody running in space. That's what made me wonder if having Big Kev in this match as a target that you could play it off him and look for a knockdown and get a Lucho coming in under a Big Kev running at the goal as he receives the ball. But Santos was out there. The first goal, actually, the FCC goal, let's talk about that, because it was this kind of action. You had Sergio check in and receive the ball in between the lines. You have Nico running off of him in that space so that he's stretching. Santos pinches. Nico's run drew a defender, so Santos is able to turn on and dribble forward. It feels like he misses the chance to play Nico down the seam there, and instead plays it wide to Luca Orishano. Luca takes on his man, step over. Assad checks off the left into the box, and Lucho runs into that space behind Assad. So it's different because it's not vertical, but it's that same sort of action where one player checks, one player fills in behind him. And I think it looks to me like Luca tries to pass it to Assad. Assad realizes that it's going to be a difficult shot, and he does an awesome dummy, takes probably a foul, lets the ball roll to Lucho, and then Lucho, just a fantastic finish. He does that thing where you stop the ball with the bottom of your foot and roll it forward, like, I'm going to just take this easy and score, and then just bends it in, kisses it off the post, leaves Willis, the goalkeeper, just standing there with his hands out. Like, I don't even know. The only thing that would have been better if he did that FIFA video game thing where the goalkeeper stands still and then just falls backwards, because it was such a good finish.
Yeah, that would be great.
Justin, when you see a goal like that, you have to ask yourself, why doesn't FCC just keep doing that? Like, it seems repeatable. Like, Santos checks, turns and dribbles, finds Assad or finds Orishano. Like, none of that was like unbelievable play. The only really outstanding like thing that might not be repeatable is Assad's dummy. But even if Assad doesn't dummy that, he has a shot himself. Why do you think that sort of action led to that goal and looked so repeatable, but they just couldn't continue to find opportunities like that?
State of the game. Was it the way Nashville then defended to combat that? Were we able to get in the same positions? I feel like what's happening at the minute is the goals like that have just scored, I feel teams are now starting to know that, if Oroshano comes inside, he's going to play the ball centrally. And I feel like they're marking Lucho for sure. What was great for me was to see Assad, who, when you think of wingbacks, you think wingbacks are normally out wide. And I feel that the run that he made, actually, him being in the box and Lucho hanging out a bit, I felt that gave Lucho a little bit of space, because normally that would have been Lucho in that space and he would have been marked for sure. And I feel having Assad in there and made that dummy, I feel like that created the space. Why can't they do that more often, coach? I don't know. Is this more of their game plan that we're going to see moving forward? Probably. But I guess it's more like, if the focal point ain't going through Lucho, this is another way now that we're going to have to attack, go wide and get in the box. If it doesn't get crossed in the box, let's play, let's call it the Man City cutbacks around the edge of the box and see if we can score like that.
I think part of the reason why FCC struggled to repeat that sort of action in this match is because so many of the players are so reluctant to progress the ball by carrying it forward. They want to pass, which is admirable. I like that. But what makes this goal is that Santos sees there's nobody on him defensively, and he turns and he ignores that first pass into Nico Gioacchini, knowing that it would have to be perfect. And instead he drives at the back line and then gives it to Oroshano. And now Oroshano is in essentially a transition opportunity where he can run out his defender and throw step overs, and other players can start checking to the ball because that defense is not set. They're defending while backpedaling. And I think Obi is the biggest culprit here. There were so many times in this match where I thought he had space to dribble forward and he just didn't. He would kind of like either stumble or take a missed touch and then worry he was going to lose it, and he'd cut it back and play it square. Lucho and those wingbacks are the only other players that I think consistently drive that ball forward. I'd love to see Gioacchini get on the ball on the half turn and drive it forward on the dribble more. Obi needs to. Yuya Kubo is good enough to do that when he plays in the midfield. He should be, or as a forward, he should be checking and receiving the ball in the midfield and doing that over and over. There's a similar action in the 39th minute, Justin, where Cheeto has the ball at midfield on the right. Nico, Santos, and Lucho all coming to the ball side. So that means spaces on the weak side for Assad to run into. Cheeto plays that long ball and Assad doesn't win it, but the defender nods it to Nico, picks up the second ball and has a fantastic finish to the far post. It was ruled offside, not because Assad was off on that initial long ball, but because after the defender headed the ball away, he was in an offside position when the defender tried to recover. Justin, what did you make of that offside? I know you're a defender. You're probably like, but I as an FCC fan, try to take off your FCC fan hat, put on your analyst hat. What do you make of that?
I'll be honest, coach. I don't think that's offside. I watched it over and over again, and I can't see how that is really offside. I'll be honest. I don't think that's offside, and I feel that should have been a goal. I 100% feel that should have been a goal. So I was disappointed because, me being a Cincinnati fan and now looking at it from a different point of view again after as an analyst, I'm like, I feel like it should have been a goal, coach. What are your thoughts on that then? Do you think it is a goal or do you think it's offside?
I 100% think it's a goal. I think it was a crime that it was taken away. And here's why. That interference is almost never called. And now you could give the referee credit because he called it on Nashville later on in the second half. But
that's true.
Goals change games. And if FCC is up at that point, Nashville might never get that opportunity. So I don't care that he made up the big call by calling it again. It was a bad call then too. I think referees need to let that kind of thing play on. None of the defenders were asking for offside. The defender who kind of almost bumped into Assad because he was trying to recover didn't turn to ask the ref for offside. Nobody expects that to be given because it's a normal part of the play, right? He's coming back to the ball. If he like ran and jumped and like put his body wide, like picked the guy, okay. But whatever, it didn't happen. FCC also got a goal off a set piece, which was a lovely strike from Oroshano that tied the game. But we talked about why FCC couldn't repeat that action of the first goal and maybe why they couldn't generate more offense against Nashville in general. To me, any discussion of not generating enough offense has to start with Lucho Costa. He didn't play terrible, he was just under his per 90 average in most stats, like shot creation, key passes. So just under that. So it's not great. But he just didn't create a lot out of those situations. So sure, he had, 4 key passes or something, but he only had half of his normal expected assists. And outside of his goal, I can't think of a notable time, Justin, in this match where he looked like he created a legit dangerous scoring chance. What did you make of Lucho's performance in this match?
Yeah, I'd say we're more dangerous when he's 100%. We don't know if he's 100%. I still feel he's still getting up to, I would say, I call it match speed. The quicker he does that, I feel the better for the team. Why I say that is because we know that he's the main creator of the team other than Orishano. A lot goes through Lucho when he's not 100%. I would say, the team is not the same. But I also feel that teams now, why I feel the team, Cincinnati is finding it hard also is because the teams are playing and just sitting back. And now that's not allowing Lucho the space that he used to operate in because teams are not spread out. They're not pressing. So when they're not pressing, their lines are more tight and Lucho can't operate in them and we can't get the ball into him. When I feel teams press us, we get that little bit of space. We get that gap in the midfield and in the areas from the opposition's defense and midfield. And then Lucho's able to operate in, I would say, that number 10 half spaces, and he's able to play forward and create loads of things. At the minute, it's not working. And I still feel, coach, that he's not 100% just yet. Yes, he scored, but I still feel he's not 100% yet. And the sooner he gets 100%, I think it'd be better for the team.
Yeah. What you mentioned there, I think is part of the problem. You said, if Lucho can't get on it, then maybe you get the ball to Orishano. Well, that's it. FCC is so predictable at this point because if Lucho is not cooking and if Orishano can't beat his man, they don't have another option. Orishano had 45 touches in the attacking third. Lucho had 40. No other player on FCC even touched the ball in that attacking third more than 20. Now, both of those players are great players.
I need to look at these stats more, coach.
Yeah. This team needs someone else, though, Justin, to step up when things aren't going perfectly for those two. So the question is, who? We've seen Yamil Assad be that guy up until he got hurt, and he's just coming back. We've seen Kubo step up in that capacity, but he was forced to play deeper with missing. So my question is this, I think, is just in this match against Nashville where they created 0.7 XG. I know you don't care about that, but the point is they didn't create a lot. They scored 2 goals, but one of them had to come off a set piece. Was this a case of the team went down to Nashville and didn't play well enough to win? Guys didn't step up that needed to. Or can we chalk this up once again to it's a draw because we didn't have all the right pieces, because Buka was out and Kubo had to drop, and they got the job done by getting a draw without a full strength lineup? Where do you put this match? Are you disappointed in the draw and the lack of creation, or happy with the draw considering, Lucho coming back to fitness, Assad coming back to fitness, and Buka missing for the game?
Yeah, I'm happy with the draw. Yes, it's disappointing we didn't get the victory, like we said at the start of the show, because Nashville haven't been playing well. But I thought it's a great point on the road after playing against Montreal, after playing against Columbus. I feel it's a good point. Players are just coming back, into full fitness. That some players aren't 100%. So I feel it is a good point against a Nashville team that wanted to perform well against Cincinnati. So I would say it's a point gained. So I would be happy with the point, coach. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. I was pretty unhappy with the point at first, but I rewatched the match, and as almost always happens, it tempered things for me a little bit. So here's where I came down on this. Last year when FCC won the Supporters Shield, up until the month of September, they were 17 wins, 6 draws, and 3 losses. Pretty fantastic. At the end of the season in September and October, not counting the postseason, they were 3 wins, 3 draws, and 2 losses. the key here has to be hitting their stride at the right time. And so playing an
Yeah.
Assad who is not back to himself yet, you have to play him into form, to get him fitness. So I'm glad
Hmm.
he started, even though he turned that ball over that led to the goal. And even though, other than dummying a pass for Lucho, he didn't create anything. It remains to be seen whether swapping pieces like Nico and Big Kev and Santos and Kubo, not to mention when we see like Orishano or Dado play up there, if that's going to keep them
Hmm.
fresh and all kind of in form heading down the stretch, or if that is going to cause them to not be fully in form heading into the postseason. But overall, I think that Pat Noonan learned from last year, and he's doing a better job to end the season of getting these guys ready to play well at the right moment. It's still going to matter
Hmm.
whether Lucho can get back to form, whether Assad can get back to form, but those are things that are out of our control, out of Pat's control. I think he's doing the right thing to play these pieces into form, and I'm
Yeah.
actually, after watching that match, I think that he's done pretty well with that. Justin, I
Hmm.
want to get to the mailbag. But before I do that, I want to thank everyone for downloading or watching or listening to today's episode. Thanks for continuing to do so. Please get subscribed wherever you're listening or watching, and try spreading the word. Tell a friend. Head over to rate and review the show. You can do it on whatever podcast app on YouTube. You can go to online to cincinnati-soccertalk.com/coach Apple Podcasts. And you can also become a supporter of CST over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. As always, we need you to make the show. I love to have your questions and comments before I even rewatch the match, because it helps me know what to watch for to set the agenda. You can always get in touch with us, whether you want me or whether you want Justin's perspective on something. You can get at us on social media or drop us a note in the mailbag. Speaking of the mailbag, Justin, our first question comes from Rupesh, who wants to know, he says, since I am the president of the Brett Housey fan club, what do you make of him not being even on the match day squad for the last few matches, along with Steven Jimenez? So Justin, first thing, talk about the difficulties as a player when you're not just on the bench and not getting minutes, you're not even in the match day squad. How hard is that on your confidence and on your psyche as a player?
Oof, coach, I've been there, especially since that and the MLS. It's tough. Mentally, you're wondering why you're not part of the squad, especially with so many defenders out injured. You want to be in that match day squad. If you're not a starter, you want to be in that squad. That's what you train every day for. That's what you get ready for the whole week, to be in that squad. Then to be told you're not in the squad, or find yourself out of the squad, getting told last minute, it's tough on your confidence. But I feel as players, you've got to keep on going. You've got to keep that belief that you're going to get your chance, you're going to get your opportunity. You might not, but you always have to keep that belief and always stay ready. But it is mentally tough that knowing that with so many injuries, you're not in that match day squad. I would say probably why he's not in that match day squad is because we've brought in some new defenders.
Yeah.
You've still got Powell, who was on the bench. You had Yedlin, who's on the bench. You've seen now Assad was back. You see the evolution of Orishano playing well. Kubo's been slotting in there. So I feel like probably that's why he's not been given an opportunity recently and not even been in the squad, because now from a defense that looked like we only had one or two defenders, we have now got a lot of defenders.
Yeah. It's a tough one,
We've
Justin,
brought in some
because
defenders now, so that's probably why.
yeah, we brought in defenders. You said Halsey was a regular on the bench up until Hadebe, made his appearance on the bench, and it
Mm.
seems like Hadebe pretty much took Halsey's spot. And I think the tough one
Mm-hmm.
is what you said about the number of players. And if you assume that two of the three out of Assad, Orishano, and Yedlin, two of those three are probably starting, right? Plus you have Alvis Powell,
Yeah.
and whoever out of that three doesn't
Mm-hmm.
start. So you have to ask yourself, does
Mm-hmm.
Brett Halsey give me a different option off the bench other than Powell and whoever isn't starting off that three? Is he a better defender than Powell or Yedlin? Is he better going forward than Powell or Yedlin? And as president of the fan club, Rupesh, you might have different answers than that of that to me. But clearly Pat Noonan thinks no. Now, the one thing I would say is
Also experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. When better, I don't just mean skill wise. I mean, if I'm putting on a player to close out a game, because, Halsey's not going to start. If I'm putting on a player to close out a game when we're up a goal, I think I'd rather it be Powell or Yedlin than Halsey, right? What's difficult for me is the presence of Kip Keller on the bench. And this has nothing to do with Kip Keller as a player, my perspective on him, but it does have to do with how he's used. We have Teenage Hidebe on the bench. We've seen Pat Noonan would rather play DeAndre Yedlin or Alvis Powell at center back than Kip Keller. So my point is, if you have Hidebe and Powell and Yedlin, all three on the bench, why have Kip Keller there too? He seems like maybe just a good vibes guy. So maybe that's Halsey and Jimenez. Maybe that's their route. They just need to be good vibes guys, Justin. Last question. We've teased it the whole episode. Brett Sova wants to know what lineup we would hope to see against LAFC this weekend, assuming all the regulars are available. So, Justin, I don't know if we want to build a best 11 here or just against LAFC. But so you can take
just
it however
LAFC,
you want.
let's go again.
Just against LAFC. Okay. So let's start in the back. I think to me, Chidozie, Murphy, and Robinson are probably the three starters.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is who starts in the center for
Which
you?
way?
Miles or Chidozie?
I would say against LAFC, I would say Chidozie. I think I'll play Miles on the right-hand side just because we're playing LAFC and they attack the way they like to attack. I would definitely put it like that because Miles is going to have to deal with,
Yeah, you do not want Chidozie in 1v1 defense repeatedly against Denny Bwanga. So Chidozie in the middle.
Especially if he picks up an early yellow card. No.
Yeah. Murphy on the left, Miles on the right. Wing backs. Orishano is in Penn. The question is he on the right or on the left? And who plays opposite him for you?
It's a tough one, Coach, because Assad has been playing well, very attack-minded. And you can play Orishano on the right. This is what I was getting at. Now, are you going to put Yedlin in this picture or are you not going to put him in the picture? That is the next question because, Yedlin's a very experienced, good player. But I feel like just for this game, I don't know. I would go with Orishano on the left and Yedlin on the right for this game. Moving forward, I don't know if I would keep that, just to be clear.
I think that for this game, that is exactly, I think it's a no-brainer that you have to do that. And here's why. LAFC are going to let FCC have the ball. They have like 48% possession on the year and they're playing on the road. What you need is Yedlin's recovery speed. We saw even at his best, 100%. Assad is not recovery speed merchant, but he's not totally fit yet. So I think this is one where if you want to win this game, you have to leave him on the bench. That said, I could see being like, you know what? I don't care that much if we win this game. I want to win, but I want to play Assad in form, so I'm starting him. But I think for me, for this game, you're right. Orishano on the left, Yedlin on the right. Obi, Buka, and Lucho are nailed on. So who is up top for you? You have Big Kev, Kubo, Nico Gioacchini.
Kubo's one of them.
Who is playing up top for you?
For me, Coach, I think I would go Kubo and Big Kev. I'll be honest, I think I'd go for them two.
Justin, this was no fun because I wanted to argue with you, and you had the exact same lineup as me. We can't.
Oh no, because we've got great minds, huh?
Yeah, I would say this. Nico Gioacchini is a rented player. He's not going to be here beyond this year or maybe middle of next year. I think develop chemistry with Big Kev and Kubo going into the playoffs. Nico has not shown me anything to say that he should be starting over Kubo.
I still need to see more from him,
Yeah, even over Santos. I would almost say in a must-win situation right now today, I think Nico might be fourth on that depth chart behind Santos. But I don't know. He might be a better player overall. Maybe he helps you do more in possession. Maybe it is a case of playing him into chemistry with Lucho and those around him. So we'll have to see what Pat Noonan does. Who knows? But just to recap our lineup, since we had the exact same one, we have Murphy on the left, Chidozie in the middle, Robinson on the right. We have Orishano at left wing back and Yedlin at right wing back. Obi and Buka in the middle with Lucho ahead of them. And up top, Big Kev and Yuya Kubo developing some chemistry and carrying us into the playoffs, hot and ready to go. Justin, you know who else is hot and ready to go for the playoffs? Me. I'm hoping you are too.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the playoffs. I'm ready to go. I got my boots ready, laced them up, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm wearing mine right now. I put them on for every podcast. Justin, thanks for doing it, my friend.
Anytime, Coach. Anytime. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And that is it for this episode of Talking Tactics with Coach Gough. If you want to do us a huge favor, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you tell a friend, and head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/Coach Apple Podcast to rate and review the show. Other than that, thank you. Thanks to my co-host, Justin Hoyte. And I had fun today. I'm hoping you did too. This is Coach Brad Gough reminding you that soccer is a privilege, so whether watching, coaching, or playing, don't forget to smile.